So, have you ever stopped and wondered how we actually know what happened thousands of years ago? I mean, we can't just hop in a time machine, right? So how do we piece together the story of our past? Well, in this quick revision, we're going to break down the essential tools of history, the timeline, and the sources to really give you a clear advantage for your exams.
We're going to tackle this just like it's a detective case. First up, we'll lay out the central mystery. Then, we're going to learn how to read the clock, the historical timeline. After that, we'll meet our all-star team of investigators, check out the evidence they've collected, and finally, we'll put your own detective skills to the test.
Just think about it for a second. We have all these stories about ancient Rome, we know so much about the Egyptian pharaohs, and we even have ideas about how early humans lived, but none of us were there. So where does all this information come from? How do we know any of it is actually true?
Well, the answer is that history is way less like a storybook and a lot more like a crime scene investigation. Historians, they're the detectives. They can't exactly interview witnesses, so they have to rely on evidence. Things like fragments of pottery, ancient texts, the very bones of our ancestors. Every single piece is a clue, and their job is to figure out what those clues are telling us, to solve the great mystery of our past. Okay, so every good investigation needs a timeline of events. And for historians, this is probably the single most important tool they have. But here's the thing. Measuring thousands of years of human history isn't quite as simple as just using the calendar on your phone. To really understand the story, we first have to agree on how we measure time itself.
You see, the world has had tons of different calendars throughout history, but to study global history, everybody needed a shared reference point. That's where the Gregorian calendar comes in. It basically became the global standard, creating this universal map that allows a historian in, say, Japan to understand a timeline from Brazil. Pretty cool, right? So how does this whole map work? Well, the system pivots around one single point, the year that is conventionally accepted as Jesus' birth, which we call year one. Everything that happened after that point counts forward, like 1947 CE. But, and this is the key part, everything before that point counts backward. So for example, the Buddha was born around 560 BCE, which means 560 years before that central dividing line.
So this gives us two simple but super important labels you absolutely need to know. For everything before year one, we use BCE, which stands for Before Common Era. And for everything after, we use CE, or Common Era. The easiest way to think of it is like a number line, with year one right in the middle. CE years go forward, getting bigger as they get closer to us. But BCE years work in reverse. The numbers actually get bigger the further back in time you go.
All right, let's try a quick little pop quiz. Which event is older? Something that happened in 100 BCE or something in 200 BCE? What do you think? If you said 200 BCE, you are exactly right. Because we're counting backward from year one, the larger BCE number always means it happened earlier or further in the past.
Okay, now that we've got the timeline down, let's meet the investigators. See, history isn't solved by just one person. No way. It takes a whole team of specialists, and each one is looking for a different kind of clue.
First up, we have the geologists. These folks read the story of the Earth itself. They can look at layers of rock and tell us when a volcano erupted or a river changed its course. They basically set the stage, showing us the kind of environment our ancestors lived in and the natural events they had to deal with. Next on the team are the paleontologists, our fossil hunters. They study the remains of ancient life, everything from massive dinosaur bones to tiny fossilized plants. They're the ones who populate the stage that the geologists set, telling us what kinds of creatures were roaming the Earth long before and even during the time of early humans.
And then, of course, we have the archaeologists. They focus specifically on the human story by digging for the things our ancestors left behind. Every broken pot, every discarded tool, or the foundation of a home they uncover is a direct piece of evidence telling us about how people actually lived their day-to-day lives.
So, we have our team of detectives. Now, what about the evidence? In history, these clues are called sources, and this is so important. They are the only link we have to people who lived and died thousands of years ago.
And here's the best way to think about it. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Every fossil, every broken pot, every ancient coin is just one small piece. Historians are trying to fit all these pieces together to reveal the full picture of the past. But here's the real challenge. We don't have all the pieces, and we probably never will.
So what do these puzzle pieces even look like? Well, they can be anything really. Stone tools can tell us about technology and how people hunted. Pottery can reveal details about their diet and art. Human bones can tell us about their health and diseases.
Heck, even something as tiny as a single burnt grain of wheat can prove that a community knew how to farm.
All right, we've covered the case, the timeline, the detectives, and the evidence. Let's do a super quick recap of the key takeaways you'll definitely want to remember. So, here are the absolute essentials. First, the timeline is split into BCE and CE. And remember, with BCE, the numbers get bigger the further back you go. Second, solving the past takes a whole team of experts, from geologists reading the Earth to archaeologists studying human objects. And third, everything we know comes from sources, the actual physical clues left behind. These tools help us pinpoint major turning points, like that huge shift to farming that happened about 12,000 years ago, right after the climate changed.
Okay, let's end with one last challenge question that kind of connects all these ideas. We've talked about experts who study the Earth and physical objects, but which expert focuses on the bigger picture of human societies and cultures? Well, while an archaeologist might find a pot, an anthropologist is the one who studies the cultural practices and social structures behind why that pot was made and used in the first place. They look at the complete human story.
And you know, that's the most exciting part of all of this. History is not a closed case. Not at all. It's a living investigation. Every single year, new discoveries are made that completely rewrite what we thought we knew. The puzzle is so far from finished. So the real question is, what giant piece of our story is still buried out there, just waiting for the next great historical detective to find it?